Again, if you are waking up to pee every night, your problem is not always your bladder, and it is definitely not always your prostate. In many cases, the real problem is that your body is making urine at the wrong time, moving fluid at the wrong time, again, or being triggered by something that has nothing to do with how much you drank right before bed. And I want to prove that to you. I'm Dr. David, and tonight I want you to do a very simple test. Put a measuring cup, container, or large plastic cup in your bathroom before you go to bed. Again. Then, when you wake up in the middle of the night to urinate, don't just guess what came out. Measure it. Actually look at the amount. Because this one step can completely change how you think about the problem. Here's why. Again, a lot of people assume they are waking up because their bladder is weak, irritated, or malfunctioning, but when they actually measure the urine, they often find they are passing a surprisingly large amount. Not a few drops, not a tiny trickle, a real amount, sometimes half a cup, again, sometimes a full cup, sometimes even more. And that matters because if your bladder is waking you up with a full volume of urine, then your bladder may not be the main issue at all. Your bladder may be doing exactly what it is supposed to do. It fills up, it signals you, again, and you wake up. So the more important question is not, why is my bladder bothering me? The more important question is, why is my body producing or delivering that much urine into my bladder while I'm asleep? That is the question most people never ask, again, and that is why they keep trying random solutions that don't work. They stop drinking water at 6 p.m., they avoid 1 glass of water before bed, they blame age, they blame their bladder, they blame their prostate, and meanwhile the real trigger keeps happening night after night now, again. Let me give you a second test, and this one is even more revealing. Look at your lower legs in the evening. Do your socks leave deep marks? Do your ankles look puffier at night than they do in the morning? Press your thumb into the front of your shin for a few seconds and then let go. Again. If the skin leaves a dent or if you can clearly see fluid retention, that is not just a cosmetic issue. That can be one of the biggest clues explaining why you are waking up to pee at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., or even several times a night, because during the day, again, so if you sit a lot, stand a lot, have circulation issues, consume too much sodium with processed food, have insulin resistance, take certain medications, or have weak vein return in the legs, fluid can gradually collect in your lower body. Again, it may not look dramatic, you may not think much about it, but your body notices it. Then what happens at night? You lie down, and the moment you lie down, gravity is no longer pulling that fluid into your feet and lower legs the same way it was all day long. Again, so that pooled fluid starts moving back into circulation, your blood volume shifts, your kidneys see that extra fluid, and your kidneys do exactly what kidneys are designed to do, they filter it out. That filtered fluid becomes urine. That urine fills your bladder, and suddenly, again, in the middle of the night, you are awake again. So sometimes the urine you pass at 2 a.m. is not mainly from the sip of water you had at 9 p.m. It is fluid your body parked in your tissues earlier in the day and finally decided to process once you got horizontal. Again, that is why so many people say, I barely drank anything at night, so why am I still getting up? That is why simply cutting one evening drink often does not solve the problem. And that is why the right strategy is not just to drink less. Again, the right strategy is to understand when your body is holding fluid, when it is releasing fluid, and what is forcing your kidneys to do extra work while you are supposed to be sleeping. Now, let me be very clear. Again, nighttime urination can absolutely be related to the bladder or prostate in some people. If you have burning with urination, blood in the urine, pain, fever, a weak stream that keeps getting worse, or you feel like you cannot empty your bladder, that deserves medical evaluation. Again, if you have severe swelling, shortness of breath, or known heart or kidney disease, that matters too. But the reason I'm making this video is because a huge number of people never get told that nighttime urination often has multiple hidden drivers, again, and some of the biggest ones are completely fixable. And once you understand them, you can stop guessing and start solving. Let's talk about what actually drives this problem. One major driver is fluid redistribution from the legs, like I just explained. Again, another major driver is what you do in the evening that changes hormones, blood sugar, kidney output, or sleep quality. And the third major driver is hidden medical triggers that are easy to miss, especially if nobody ever connects the dots for you. Let's start with evening triggers. Again, a lot of people make their nighttime urination worse with the exact habits they think are harmless. Late night snacking, dessert after dinner, salty packaged foods, alcohol in the evening, caffeine too late in the day. Again, huge glasses of water at night because they forgot to hydrate earlier. All of that can push the body in the wrong direction. If you eat a heavy meal late, especially one loaded with refined carbohydrates and salty processed foods, you can create a perfect storm. Blood sugar rises. Again, insulin rises, thirst rises, you may drink more, sodium balance shifts, sleep quality gets worse. And if you already have fluid retention or metabolic dysfunction, your body is even more likely to hold fluid at the wrong time and dump it later while you are sleeping. Again, And this is where people get confused. They think the problem is the water itself. But very often the water is only part of the picture. The bigger issue is the context around that water. What did you eat with it? How late did you eat? How much sodium did you consume? Again, did you drink alcohol? Did you have dessert? Did you sit still for 3 hours after dinner? Did your legs swell all evening? Did you go to bed with poor circulation, high stress, and a body that is still metabolically active when it should be winding down? That combination matters. Again, alcohol is another huge one. A lot of people think alcohol helps them sleep because it makes them feel drowsy. But physiologically, it often does the opposite of what you want. It can increase urine production, fragment sleep, worsen snoring, and aggravate sleep apnea. Again, so maybe you don't just wake up to pee because your bladder is full. Maybe the alcohol disrupted your sleep, and once you are partially awake, you suddenly notice the bladder sensation more. That turns one problem into two problems: worse sleep and more trips to the bathroom. Again, caffeine can do something similar, especially if you are sensitive to it or you drink it later than you realize. Even afternoon caffeine can still be affecting some people at night. It can keep the nervous system more activated, reduce sleep depth, again, and in some people it can irritate the bladder or increase urgency. If you are waking up multiple times at night, the last thing you want is a substance that makes your sleep lighter and your system more stimulated. Then there is the issue nobody talks about enough: sleep apnea. Again, this is one of the most overlooked reasons people wake up to urinate at night. If you snore loudly, wake up choking, feel exhausted in the morning, have high blood pressure, or your partner says you stop breathing in your sleep, pay attention. Sleep apnea does not just affect oxygen. Again, it changes pressure dynamics in the chest, strains the cardiovascular system, and can increase signals that promote nighttime urine production. In other words, your body may literally be making more urine because your breathing is repeatedly being disrupted. Again, that means if somebody has untreated sleep apnea, they can chase bladder supplements, prostate support, and fluid restriction for years and still not fix the problem, because the real driver was not in the bladder at all, it was in the airway. Again, another hidden trigger is medication timing. Diuretics are the obvious example, but they are not the only one. Certain blood pressure medications, diabetes medications, and other prescriptions can affect urine output, fluid balance, or bladder behavior. Again, sometimes the medication is necessary, but the timing can be adjusted. Sometimes there is an alternative. Sometimes the symptom is a side effect nobody warned you about. And if you do not review that with your doctor, again, you keep blaming yourself for a problem that may be at least partially medication-driven. And of course, we also have to talk about blood sugar. If blood sugar is running high, the kidneys may pull extra glucose into the urine, and water follows it. That means more urine production. Again, more thirst, more nighttime trips to the bathroom. Sometimes people think they just have a sleep problem or an aging problem, when in reality their body is waving a metabolic red flag. So now you can see why I said this problem is often bigger than the bladder. Again, the bladder is usually just the messenger. The bladder is telling you what the kidneys made, what the legs released, what the hormones signaled, what the airway disrupted, or what the evening habits set into motion. And once you understand that, the fixes start making a lot more sense. Again, so let's get into the 3 proven fixes that actually work, because the goal is not just to understand the problem. The goal is to stop waking up every single night. Fix number 1 is this: move the fluid before bed instead of making your kidneys deal with it after bed. Again, this is one of the most effective strategies when fluid is collecting in your legs during the day. If your ankles swell, your socks leave marks, your legs feel heavy at night, or your nighttime urine volumes are large, this is a big one. Here's what you do. After dinner, again, don't stay planted in the chair all evening. Walk. Even 10 to 20 minutes can help. Walking activates the calf muscles, and the calf muscles act like pumps. They help push fluid and blood back upward instead of letting everything stagnate below the knees. Again, that means you are helping your body handle some of that fluid before you go to sleep. Second, elevate your legs in the evening. Not just for 2 minutes. Give it enough time to matter. If you are sitting on the couch, bring your legs up. If possible, again, elevate them above the level of your heart for a period of time. You do not have to be extreme, but you do need to be consistent. The whole purpose is to let some of that pooled fluid shift earlier, while you are still awake, again, so you can use the bathroom before bed instead of 3 times after bed. If swelling is a consistent issue, discuss compression socks with your doctor, especially if you have vein problems, varicose veins, or long periods of sitting or standing. For the right person, again, compression can reduce lower leg pooling during the day and lower the amount of fluid that redistributes at night. And here is the key point: if you do this correctly, you may find yourself urinating more in the evening before sleep. Good, that is exactly what you want. Better at 8, again, 30 p.m. than at 2:30 a.m. Fix number 2 is this: stop creating the nighttime trigger window. Most people unknowingly create a perfect setup for nocturia between dinner and bedtime. They eat too late, snack after dinner, drink alcohol, eat something sweet, then sit for hours, again, and go to bed with a body that is still processing a metabolic storm. You want to reverse that. First, make dinner earlier when possible. Give your body time to digest. Going to bed on top of a heavy meal is one of the easiest ways to worsen reflux, worsen sleep, again, worsen blood sugar control, and worsen nighttime urination. Second, close the kitchen after dinner. This is a powerful rule because it removes the most common trigger, the late night snack. Chips, cookies, ice cream, leftover takeout, sweet tea, cereal, again. Even healthy snacks, if they are late enough, can keep the whole system activated. If your goal is uninterrupted sleep, late eating works against that goal. Third, be smarter about fluids. I am not telling you to dehydrate yourself, that often backfires. Again, I am telling you to front-load more of your hydration earlier in the day and be intentional in the evening. Many people underdrink all morning, get busy all afternoon, then suddenly try to catch up after dinner. That is a terrible trade. Spread your hydration better, again, and stop making bedtime the biggest drinking window of the day. Fourth, reduce evening alcohol and watch late caffeine. If you want to know whether they are affecting you, do not guess. Remove them for a couple of weeks and see what happens. Again, your body will tell you very quickly whether they were part of the problem. Fifth, pay attention to the sodium and carbohydrate bomb that often happens at night. Pizza, takeout, restaurant food, packaged snacks, desserts, sweet drinks, and salty processed foods can create thirst, again, fluid retention, poor sleep, and extra urine production. A lighter, earlier dinner with fewer processed carbs and less sodium can make a dramatic difference for the right person. And let me tell you something important. Again, people often want a miracle supplement while keeping the exact same nighttime habits. That usually does not work. Because if your body is being triggered every evening by the same routine, the first step is to stop triggering it. Fix number 3 is this. Again, find and correct the hidden medical driver. This is the fix people resist because it sounds less exciting than a quick hack. But if you skip this one, you can miss the real reason everything else is failing. If you are getting up repeatedly, again, especially more than once or twice on a regular basis, and it is not improving, you need to think bigger. Are you snoring? Do you have symptoms of sleep apnea? Do you have diabetes or prediabetes? Are you on medications that increase urination? Do you have swelling? Again, do you have signs of bladder irritation, infection, or incomplete emptying? Are you waking because your sleep is fragmented first, and then deciding to urinate because you are already awake? That last point is huge. Sometimes the bladder is the reason you wake up. Other times, again, you wake up for another reason and only then notice that you could use the bathroom. Those are not the same problem, and they do not have the same solution. This is why I recommend a simple 3-night log. Write down what time you stopped eating, again, what time you stopped drinking large amounts of fluid, whether you had alcohol, whether you had dessert or a late snack, how swollen your legs were, whether you elevated them, what time you went to sleep, how many times you woke up, and approximately how much urine you passed each time. Again, also note whether you snore, whether you wake with a dry mouth, and how tired you feel in the morning. That log can be incredibly revealing. If you are passing large volumes, think nocturnal urine production, fluid shift, metabolic issues, or sleep apnea. Again, if you are passing tiny volumes with frequent urgency, think more about bladder irritation, overactive bladder infection, or other lower urinary tract issues. If you are waking exhausted with headaches and loud snoring, think sleep apnea. Again, if the pattern changed right after a new medication, think side effect. If your swelling is obvious by evening, think fluid pooling. The point is not to diagnose yourself perfectly. The point is to stop being blind to the pattern, because once you see the pattern, again, the right next step becomes obvious. Now let me give you a practical way to combine all 3 fixes into one experiment, because I want this to be actionable for the next 7 nights. Do this exactly. Eat dinner earlier than usual. Keep dinner lighter than usual. No late dessert. Again, no late snack. Kitchen closed after dinner. Take a 10 to 20 minute walk after the meal. When you get home or settle in for the evening, elevate your legs for a while instead of letting them hang down the entire night. Again, shift more of your hydration earlier in the day so you are not trying to catch up with giant glasses of liquid before bed. Avoid alcohol in the evening. Avoid caffeine late in the day. More nighttime urine if you wake up, and log what happens. Again, this is how you turn a frustrating symptom into a solvable problem, because here is what most people do instead. They keep everything random. Random dinners, random fluids, random snacks, random alcohol, random sleep, random bedtime, random assumptions. Then they say nothing works. Again, but nothing works when nothing is tested. When you test the pattern, the pattern sticks. Maybe you will discover that the biggest trigger is the late salty dinner. Maybe it is dessert. Maybe it is alcohol. Maybe it is fluid pooling in the legs. Again, maybe it is the fact that you sit for 4 straight hours every night. Maybe it is loud snoring and untreated sleep apnea. Maybe it is the timing of a medication. Maybe it is more than one factor at the same time. That is very common, by the way. Again, a person can have mild prostate enlargement, late eating, evening alcohol, poor sleep, leg swelling, and sleep apnea all at once. Then they wonder why a single bladder pill did not fix everything, because the problem was never just one thing. Again, and that brings me to a very important myth I want to destroy right now. The myth is that nighttime urination is simply a normal part of getting older that you just have to accept. No. It may become more common with age, but common does not mean untouchable. Again, common does not mean irreversible. Common does not mean you should just suffer through broken sleep, fatigue, irritation, and risk of falling in the dark. There is a huge difference between this is common and this cannot be improved. In fact, for many people, again, the most dangerous part of nocturia is not the inconvenience. It is the sleep fragmentation, exhaustion the next day, the elevated fall risk, the disorientation at night, and the cumulative stress on the body when sleep is broken over and over again. So even if you have been told it is not a big deal, if it is happening regularly, it deserves attention. And here is another thing people miss. The body likes rhythms. Your kidneys, your hormones, your digestion, your blood sugar, your sleep pressure, your nervous system, all of these systems are designed to shift at night. Night is supposed to be a repair window, not a catch-up window for digestion, fluid dumping, alcohol clearance, sugar spikes, and leg decongestion all at the same time. The more you force too much unfinished work into the nighttime hours, the more likely your body is to wake you up. That is why the best fixes work with biology, not against it. Move more in the evening so fluid does not just sit there. Eat earlier so digestion is not peaking when you are trying to sleep. Stop late snacking so insulin and blood sugar are not being pushed upward right before bed. Reduce alcohol and caffeine so sleep can deepen. Address swelling so the kidneys are not flooded with redistributing fluid all night. Check for sleep apnea so you are not treating the wrong system. Review medications so you are not ignoring an obvious trigger. These are not gimmicks. These are direct interventions on the mechanisms that actually create the problem. Now, if you are somebody who has already tried drinking less at night, and it did not solve the issue, that does not mean you are doomed. It may simply mean you targeted the weakest part of the pattern. Fluid restriction by itself is often too simplistic. Some people take it so far they become underhydrated during the day, then overcompensate later and end up in the same cycle. Or they reduce water but keep the alcohol, keep the late dessert, keep the swelling, keep the snoring, and keep the heavy dinner. Then they wonder why the problem is still there. You have to target the strongest drivers, not just the easiest one to blame. And let me say one more thing about the prostate, because this is where many men immediately go. Yes, prostate enlargement can absolutely contribute to nighttime symptoms, but not every man waking up to urinate has a prostate problem as the primary cause. Some men do have enlarged prostates and also have sleep apnea. Some have mild prostate enlargement, but the real nighttime trigger is leg fluid redistribution. Some have prostate symptoms during the day, but their nighttime wake-ups are being magnified by alcohol and late eating. So do not reduce the entire issue to one body part just because that is the most common story. And for women, the same principle applies. This is not just a male problem. Fluid shifts, sleep disorders, metabolic issues, bladder irritation, and medication effects can affect women too. Nighttime urination is a whole body problem more often than people realize. So where should you start? Start with awareness, tonight, measure, tonight. Observe your legs, tonight. Think about what happened between dinner and bedtime, and then start the 7-night experiment, Because if you can reduce even one of your nightly wake-ups, that is meaningful. If you can go from 3 times a night to 1, that is meaningful. If you can sleep longer, deeper, and wake up less exhausted, that is meaningful. And if you discover a hidden medical issue like sleep apnea, diabetes, or medication-related nocturia early, that can change far more than your sleep. It can change your health trajectory. That is why I do not want you to dismiss this. I also do not want you to panic. I want you to investigate it intelligently. Most symptoms become less mysterious when you stop looking at them in isolation. Bladder is connected to your kidneys. Your kidneys are affected by fluid balance. Fluid balance is affected by your legs, your circulation, your hormones, your food, your medications, and your sleep. Your sleep is affected by your breathing, your nervous system, alcohol, caffeine, blood sugar, and nighttime habits. Everything is connected, and once you see those connections, you stop playing defense and start taking control. So let me summarize this as simply as possible. If you are waking up to pee every night, first find out whether you are passing a large amount or a small amount. If it is a large amount, think about nighttime urine production, fluid redistribution, evening triggers, sleep apnea, and metabolic issues. Think more about bladder irritation, urgency, infection, overactive bladder, or incomplete emptying. If your legs swell, deal with the fluid earlier by walking and elevating them. If your evenings are full of snacks, sugar, alcohol, again, and late meals, stop creating the nighttime trigger. If the pattern is persistent, loud snoring is present, or you have other symptoms, investigate the hidden medical driver instead of blaming age. Again, those are the 3 fixes that actually work because they go after the reason the problem is happening in the first place. And if you apply them consistently, there is a very good chance your nights can get quieter, longer, and a whole lot less interrupted. Again, I want you to try this for 1 week, not 1 night. 1 week, because one random night does not tell you much, but a week of consistent changes can tell you almost everything. It can show you whether your body responds to earlier meals, less evening stimulation, better fluid timing, again, leg elevation, post-dinner walking, and trigger removal. It can tell you whether you need to go further and get evaluated for sleep apnea, diabetes, medication effects, or urinary issues. That information is powerful, and the best part is this. Again, you do not need to wait for perfect conditions to start. You can begin tonight, mess chores the urine, check the legs, close the kitchen after dinner, walk after your evening meal, get the fluid out of the legs before the kidneys have to do it at 2 in the morning. Again, and if you keep waking up despite doing all of that, take it seriously enough to look deeper, because sometimes the bathroom trip is only the symptom your body gives you, while the real issue is happening somewhere else entirely. That is how you stop guessing. Again, that is how you stop blaming the wrong organ, and that is how you finally start fixing the problem. If this helped you see Nocturia in a completely different way, again, follow Dr. David for more practical health breakdowns that explain what is really going on inside the body and what you can do about it. And if nighttime urination is happening along with loud snoring, dry mouth, morning headaches, or crushing fatigue, again, your next step should be learning about sleep apnea, because for a lot of people, that is the missing piece they never knew they were missing.